Hey everybody, welcome to the Three Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman. This is episode number 288 of the Three Gun Show with our new friend, Taylor Thorne. Those of you who have heard of Taylor Thorne know her as an RO of several major matches and an adventurer, basically. I got the wonderful opportunity to meet Taylor as she was ROing a stage at the Wyoming Governors match. And she let me know that she was traveling around the country and shooting three-gun while living in a travel trailer, which, if you've been listening to the Three Gun Show for any length of time, you know that is my story as well before I transitioned to what I'm currently doing now. So Taylor and I immediately hit it off, and we thought, well, shoot, we should get to know each other on the podcast here, which is exactly what we did. So if... It's kind of weird because if I want to interview you for the podcast, I don't like talking too much to you because I don't want to spill the beans and get all the interesting stuff out of the way before learning it alongside the audience. So I saved a lot of this for the podcast, and Taylor and I have talked many times since, and she's having a wonderful time on the road, and she's actually pumped out like a ton of content through her YouTube channel, her new YouTube channel, through Instagram, through Facebook, and through several other channels, including Meat Eater. She was just on the Meat Eater podcast, which is really, really cool. And she got to teach the folks over there how to shoot three-gun, of all things. So exciting stuff from Taylor. If you haven't listened to the podcast that she was on the Meat Eater, I'll have the link to that as well as her YouTube channel in the show notes. Very interesting gal, really interesting talk here. And I know you're going to enjoy it. So as I was preparing for this podcast, I remembered that when I was traveling around, I would always share with you guys, when I recorded this intro to the podcast, where I was at the time and what I was doing. So I'm currently in Tacoma, Washington on business. And I'm just kind of sitting in the hotel room here and doing a little bit of three-gun show work before I head off to go to bed and then get up and work in the morning. So a big departure from from where I was in the past. I'm no longer staying in Walmart parking lots in the travel trailer, but still on the road. So without further ado, here's Taylor Thorne and her wonderful adventure.
Taylor, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on the podcast. Great to have you on the Three Gun Show. Where do we find you tonight?
Oh goodness! So tonight I am in Gardner, Montana, north of the north entrance of Yellowstone. I could actually see Mammoth Springs from where I'm camped. It's pretty cool.
Nice. So what brings you there?
So I actually recently shot the governor's match in Wyoming. If you don't know about that, which of course I met you there, so I know you know about that, but the shooters.
I know a little bit about that.
If the listeners don't know about it, I'm happy to discuss what that match was about. So after finishing the governor's match in Cody, I, of course, was not too far away from Yellowstone, so just had to make my way here.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you find yourself in Cody, that like Yellowstone, I think it's 60 to 90 minutes away or something like that, just to the park entrance, but you gotta go because it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's unreal. It's literally Mars meets Alpine. So bizarre.
Yeah. It's the trippiest thing. It's some of the like weirdest terrain on the planet. And then, right in the background of like this massive, beautiful forest, which on the east side, unfortunately, is like getting all killed by beetles right now.
Yeah, so they have a huge issue. As you drive through, you could see half the pines are affected. They're almost gray in color, and then the other half are alive and well. And actually, what we're dealing with right now is some wildfires just started. When I was driving to my camper yesterday, everything was in a haze, and I could smell the smoke. I had no idea what was going on. And then one of my friends messaged me. It was like, yeah, so there's like 2 major wildfires around you. I'm like, oh, okay. That's cool. All right.
Yeah, you might want to keep tabs on that.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Everything's cleared up, so I think they have it under control.
So Taylor, let's definitely talk about the Wyoming Governors match. So we met there, and
yes,
you were RO on stage 11.
Yes.
And you mentioned to me that you were traveling the country and shooting three gun, and staying in a travel trailer. And I thought, oh, that's a novel idea. What a great idea.
Yeah, well, so the funny thing is I had no idea you used to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know anyone else who is a full-time RVer and shoots 3-gun. And to meet someone who had also done the same thing, I've been dying to talk to you because I'm like, I need to know your knowledge. And it's a whole different lifestyle. And I'm so excited to be on the road, to meet all these different people, to travel to all these different matches. And the Governors Cup is so cool because what most people don't realize is that the governor of Wyoming actually sponsors it.
Yeah.
And he uses it as almost like a political tool to expose what good and safe gun ownership looks like and what shooting sports is about. And he uses that to show the other citizens in the area and also politicians. So we had politicians from South Dakota and, of course, the governor himself, and they all shot a stage, which was so cool. When do you ever hear of a governor shooting a 3-gun stage?
Yeah, it's pretty trippy too because I was standing on stage 9 and there was this dude at the back and he was watching what we were doing, kind of eyeballing, and I just do what I normally do and just went up and introduced myself and said, hey, is it what we're doing here is kind of weird. Do you have any questions about what we're doing? And you haven't, is there anything you want to know? And turned out it was the lieutenant governor of South Dakota.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly who I met too. And he just seemed completely normal. And so to go up to him and be like, oh, wow, and ask them what the match meant to them, it was really cool. And as a competitor, I hope for all the other competitors, including yourself, it definitely made me feel special to be sort of that role model that they were using to display to all the politicians and to the citizens of the area. It was so cool. Yeah,
they probably should have chose someone better than me, but yeah, maybe for you and some of the other people it was fine. But
I don't know about that either.
I think it's interesting. I'm from Denver, Colorado, and we had like our fair share of political problems there with gun control being shoved down our throats. So to be standing next to the next governor of South Dakota with like a pistol on my hip and have him not be worried and no one's tackling me just seems like a completely foreign concept, and it makes me really grateful for where I live now in Wyoming.
Absolutely. Well, and the other thing too is the fact that I've noticed out west. So I'm from New Hampshire, and out west, guns and your Second Amendment are truly a part of the culture. Mm-hmm. And they think nothing about it, which is cool. Was born and raised in Texas, and there, even the most liberal cities they still accept it. And you could go into those liberal cities and openly say, hey, I shoot guns for a living. And they'll be like, oh, okay, they accept it because it's simply part of the culture. But if you do that out east, you could very possibly get a look that is not good and not positive. And they might walk away from you without saying anything.
That's the way Colorado's turned too, or at least it was turning that way when I was there. But growing up, it was just a no big deal kind of thing. Just the stories that the old guys tell about, gun racks in the back of the pickup trucks and in the school parking lot and stuff. We would go shoot with, I would go shoot with my buddy's parents and be gone the entire day. My parents would never worry one thing. It was no big deal, So it's great to see it normalized again. And then normalized by like the top politicians in the state is actually pretty cool too, because it does trickle down from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's super important to expose people to this lifestyle, because one point that was brought up when I was at the governor's match was by someone who is just, she was staffing the kitchen. So she wasn't like RO staff or anything like that. And she discussed what shooting competitions does for the economy. In the previous year, we had 350 competitors for the governor's match, and they generated over $800,000 for Cody, which is huge for a state like Montana, where there's only like 500,000 citizens, right? So how much are they yielding in terms of revenue from tourism, and what impact does $800,000 have? That's pretty significant. And what a lot of people don't realize is when we have these major shooting competitions, all of these competitors, they have to lodge, dine, they go to the attractions. So as a competitor at the governor's match, to get emails from the governor's office saying, hey, welcome. We're so happy to see you. Here's all the stuff you could do. And guess what? Here's some discount codes for you to go do those things. So cool. And I think it would be awesome if other regions of the country did something similar, because there is economic impact, as well as obviously promoting Second Amendment rights, which is just like, you can't beat that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So it's a really good point about the economic impact. And that was just making me think about all the matches that have been either delayed or canceled this year. Like, those folks are missing out on that economic impact, whether it's like the impact for just a range itself, or like you said, lodging and dining around the area. Like here in Cheyenne, they canceled Cheyenne Frontier Days, which is like the biggest thing that happens in this town. And you're already seeing a lot of places like shut their doors and stuff around here. So that is needed, especially right now. Tourism is good.
It is. Tourism is so good. But fortunately, the firearms industry as a whole, as we all know, is doing very well. So it's just the competitive side of things that is really hurting.
Yeah. We all want to get out and shoot. It's time.
Oh my gosh. Yes, we do. And more matches are getting canceled. So Area 1 was officially canceled, I think, during the governor's match.
Yeah.
And that was going to be my next stop. So that changes plans. But in 2020, as a competitor, you have to be flexible. It's really what it comes down to.
Pretty much. And then if you like shooting, September and October are going to be your month, because all the stuff is getting moved to the same freaking month. So.
Oh my goodness. Yes. So I am going through that right now at our local club in New Hampshire. All of our matches are pretty much scheduled for September, and the competitors are so torn as to what matches they're going to be shooting. And as match directors, we're kind of losing our minds because staff is going to be exhausted. Normally, you could get maybe 1 or 2 matches out of staff members, major matches, that is. But to ask them to do 3 or 4 in 1 month, it's just killer.
Yeah, that's nearly impossible to do. You got to take a whole month off of work.
Yeah.
Actually, It doesn't sound bad now that I think about it.
Yes, everyone, take a month off of work so you can help us staff our matches.
It'll be great. It's a good time.
It'll be good. Absolutely.
Well, Taylor, let's back up a little bit. So, you mentioned you run a 3-gun match in New Hampshire. So, how did you get into practical shooting? Like, when did that start for you?
Oh, goodness. So this is an interesting story. I didn't actually get into guns until I was about 23. I had basically moved out on my own for the first time, living by myself in a town with no police department at all. So I knew if I dialed 911 that the closest state trooper would show up whenever he was available. And in New Hampshire, where we don't have a huge, police force, we don't know when that was going to be, right? And so I just reached out to a friend of mine who I knew was into guns. He said, sure, come down to the shop. He worked at Shooter's Outpost at the time, had me try out a couple of guns, and I bought my first handgun. But like everything I do, very quickly, it evolved into an obsession. So I started going to firing lines and practicing, friends' backyards and practicing. And then someone that I was dating at the time handed me a shotgun, and he had a ski thrower. So I'm now trying clays for the first time. Never even shot a shotgun in my life. And he's just kind of like, wow, you did way better than my buddy who I took out last weekend did. I'm like, oh, really? Because I feel like I'm missing a lot of them. He's like, no, you're doing really good. And I think it was 4 months after that, he called me and said, hey, so I enrolled you in a sporting clay competition. Oh, you did?
How did you feel about that?
So nervous, because when you think of competitors in shooting, you're thinking of people of elite level, right?
Yep.
And anytime you tell someone you're a competitive shooter, all of a sudden they think that you're like Keanu Reeves, right? That you're just like this out of this world, incredible shooter. And that was intimidating. And the whole way driving to the match, I remember my stomach was just in knots. I'm like, what are these people going to think about me? How am I going to perform? I don't even know what to expect. And this is a 2-hour drive to Scarborough, Maine. So I had a long time to really sit on this stuff. But once I shot it, it was fun. It was a blast. And soon after that, I started researching 3-gun on YouTube, like we all do, obsessing over 3-gun YouTube videos, right?
Of course.
And over the course of about 2 years, I started saving up 3-gun gear because it's expensive to get into. And just, buying a belt here and a holster there and a gun there. So everything just slowly came together. And then finally in 2016, I shot my first 3-gun match, which was let's just say things didn't go over so well, but I had a blast. And in 2017, that was my first full season.
Nice.
Yes.
So
yes. And of course, because I do everything at 100%, by the end of 2017, I actually started match directing. So my first season of competing, they actually didn't have 3-gun at the club that I belonged at Pioneer Sportsman. And that really bothered me. The 3-gun scene in New England was super lacking. Like, I'm not sure, you probably haven't even heard of 3-gun in New England because it's something that is just now coming up.
Yeah, I can't think of, I couldn't name a match up there for sure.
Right. And we're working on that. So we have a charity match called Aiming for Zero. And what we do is we donate the proceeds from shooting competitions to help prevent veteran suicide. And we had an Aiming for Zero match for like IDPA, but we didn't have one for 3-gun. And so I went to the board and asked them if I could run a Aiming for Zero match as a 3-gun and a USPSA match, sanctioned, of course, because I want to do the most difficult thing I can. And mind you, before that point, I had been told by multiple people that my club would never entertain the idea of 3-gun. Multiple people said, like, don't even bother. They won't consider it.
And why is that?
Just because at the time, the board of directors were, I'll be honest, there were a whole bunch of FUDs, right?
Right.
And action pistol shooting was something that they were not super keen on. In 2017, we had our first season of USPSA there. So because we had a good season of USPSA, I felt confident going to them, asking for a USPSA match, and then throwing 3-gun on top of it. But I did my research. I went to the board of directors, and lo and behold, they approved it.
Nice.
Yep. And so as of right now, we're coming into our 4th year of the Aiming for Zero match. It's the biggest 3-gun match in New England. So last year we saw 180 competitors, but keep in mind that was ran as both 3-gun and as USPSA. So we had competitors from both disciplines shooting the same stages, which was pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. That's it's quite the accomplishment to go from nothing to 180 competitors in like 4 years.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, and I won't say it hasn't been a lot of work, but the thing is, people crave 3-gun in New England, and they've just been waiting for a venue. So our monthly matches, we cap them typically around 60 to 75, depending on how much staff I have.
That's a good turnout.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and we fill up day one. I had one match last year that filled up in less than an hour.
Huh.
Yeah. Yep, and that's how all the 3-gun matches are in New England right now. So it's been so cool to see other clubs open up 3-gun matches and for the 3-gun scene to grow there, because from what I understand, in other parts of the country, it's actually on the decline.
Yeah, so that's the reason I said that is, we had 4 matches in Colorado when I started the podcast, and it was like that for several years, but one of them kind of went away and then was turned into something else, and then some other people have moved on, and it is kind of turning into a little bit of a downturn, I would say, especially, and I guess in the same vein, the matches I shot in Texas were kind of that way as well, and it sucks, and no one wants to hear it, and everyone wants to think like, oh, it's still really super popular, but
yeah,
there is a little bit of a downturn.
I will be the first to say I'm in full denial that 3-gun is on the decline, but it's probably because I'm biased. Being in New England, we're growing the sport exponentially, and new clubs are popping up all the time. And again, I think it's because it's just supply and demand. We didn't have the matches, people craved it, and now since we kind of opened up the floodgates, more and more people are starting to compete, more people are getting into it. And the other thing, too, is when I started 3-gun in New England, there was no way as a competitor to really figure out where all the matches were. I mean, you were pretty much banging your head against the wall, scouring through practice score, trying to figure out, okay, where are these? Because a lot of them were outlaw and they weren't even on practice score. So It was just word of mouth. It was so frustrating. And I basically emailed every single match director who ever posted on the Northeast Shooters Forum as advertising 3-gun. And I also emailed, just again, all the clubs who I thought might possibly run 3-gun. And for the first time, Chris Zahn, one of our competitors, he put together a Facebook page, and all the match directors are talking, and we're all on the same page so we could sync up schedules, so you don't have 3 matches on one weekend and then no matches on the next.
Yeah.
And that's been so helpful.
That's way cool. And, more match, I'm saying this is not match director, but from a consumer standpoint, I wish more matches would do that, because when you step on the same week, it's like, now you're making me decide who I want to go to. I want to go to both.
Yeah. And it's a big problem. And as a match director, it's a huge problem, because then you are losing competitors. Right?
Yeah, it dilutes the pool.
Yeah. And you don't want to do that. So we want to work off of each other. And a lot of times at our matches, you'll see staff from other clubs come and help you at your club. And that's what we should be doing to help continue the sport and to support each other and to make things better for the competitors. Yeah.
That's what I always enjoyed when we did have all those matches in Colorado, is like you would see the match directors from the match up north, down south, and they would be shooting the match and not having to do all the match director duties, right? And just coming as competitors, and then vice versa. And just all matches supporting each other for like the greater good, I thought was kind of cool.
Absolutely. And you have to be super delicate with staff. I remember when I first started, we had one competitor who was the only real serious 3-gun competitor in our area. And all the different match directors would kind of abuse him. And it just burnt him out. And fortunately, again, we've built up a support system where that doesn't happen. But when I first started 3-gun, I saw that. And I'm like, man, that's not, we can't do that to people. We have to. And that's part of why I wanted to travel, is because we don't have 3-gun competitors up north who are super seasoned, because we've all started shooting right around the same time, which was 2017, right? And which is kind of cool to have an entire region that sort of birthed at the same time of 3-gunners. But there is a downfall, because we don't have those uber experienced guys who've been doing it for 10, 20 years.
Yeah. And from my experience, you need someone to come in and like kick everybody's ass to raise everyone's competition to level. Because otherwise you just kind of stay where you're at in your progression based on the people around you. So unless you really have like that strong competitive environment, you need someone from the outside to come in and humiliate everyone and make them get better.
Yes. Well, so what's great is we have
in a good way.
A good handful or so of competitors who travel nationally, and they have developed their skills so well that they place very well at national matches. And we do have a good level of competition, but again, we don't have those big name guys who have been doing it forever, which just steps it up to a whole nother level.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's great. So you have your monthly match. You have a sort of a, I guess, hybrid type major match of USPSA and 3-gun. What are your next goals for the club there?
Honestly, the biggest goal I have is to make it sustainable. Can I just say right now, I'm so proud of my club. I was very nervous leaving on my cross-country road trip how the monthly match series would sustain, because I've match directed every single match that we've had for the last 3 years, right? And to be able to sort of hand off that responsibility to someone else, I was anxious of how sustainable it would be. And that's the thing, is we have to build up that core group of staff and club members and competitors who are willing to help, so that we can make these sustainable, that we can make these match series sustainable. And fortunately, they have had one match now since I've been gone, and it filled up. We had a waiting list. And of course, people are texting and emailing me, Taylor, can you get me in? I'm like, not my deal right now. But obviously I was still helping in the background, right? And I hope for the other clubs. I know that we have a club up in Holderness, New Hampshire, which is sort of the north of the Lakes region, if you know New Hampshire at all. And that match director, same thing. He's ran every single match, and he's working on trying to make it sustainable, because he wants to make sure that if for whatever reason he leaves the club, that it does not die when he leaves, right?
Yeah, that's a really, really tough thing, because there are in a match, there's one person that is the nexus, right? And then everyone else around that is like the core people that help out all the time. And if one of those people goes away, like the whole match can fall apart, especially if the match director goes away. It's a tough thing.
We've all seen that happen. I'm sure you've seen that happen, right? So there used to be a club called Pelham Fishing Game in New Hampshire that ran really great USPSA matches, but the person who was match directing simply got burnt out. And the last season he ran, I remember there was emails going out that, hey, if we don't have enough staff members, I literally am going to pull this match because we can't run it without staff. And people were not stepping up. So after that season, that club stopped running USPSA matches, which is unfortunate.
That is unfortunate. What kind of staff do you have to run, or to have to run a club match? Maybe you guys are doing it a different way than we do. Oh, set up. Okay, yeah. That is always a headache for sure.
Yeah, because once obviously competitors show up, you hand them a timer, you hand them a tablet, they're going to help you run things. Right. That's just part of it. But you have to set up the match. And that is not done the morning of. Some clubs pull off doing it the morning of, but most of the clubs around here do it the day before just because it is time consuming. And asking people to come in either on a Saturday or a Friday to come in and set up, they're not always willing to step up. No,
that's tough. Most people can get like one day away from the family to go shoot a match or something like that, but it's tough to get two. You know?
Absolutely. It is. But again, our community is super tight knit. And I think that most competitors realize the value of volunteer work and how important that is. And most people are willing to step up and to help volunteer. I just hope that continues, not just at my club and the ones in New England, but everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. If you got a local club that you like, go help. It'll last longer.
Yes. Message to the audience. Go help your club.
So Taylor, let's shift gears again. You're on this walkabout. You're traveling around the country. Sounds like a great idea. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Where did you get the idea for that? How did this come about?
So this is where we get real deep, right? So I had, interestingly enough, it was last year. I remember I called a good friend of mine. You probably know him, Joe Farewell. And I was just asking him what it was like to work in the firearms industry, because I had talked to other people, and because we are all so intertwined, no one wanted to speak very frequently in terms of not wanting to potentially offend their current employer, right? Because you can't burn bridges. And I knew he would be very frank with me. So we had that discussion of what it was like. And for those of you out there who are curious, what it really comes down to is being flexible, making sure you have 3 things on the back burner, never burn any bridges, because the position you're in now can dissolve, but then that company might need you for another thing 2 years from now, right? And it's a very volatile industry. So you have to make sure to have just a good head on your shoulders to be able to support yourself through all of those changes. And again, to be flexible. You can't just get in a job and expect to be there for years on end, right? But what I had come to find out the day after I spoke with Joe, my brother had actually committed suicide. And he took his girlfriend with him. So it was a murder-suicide.
Oh, my God. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, there are no words, right?
No.
And people don't know how to respond. They don't know how to react. I didn't. And when that happened, if anyone out there has lost anyone really close to them, especially, when it comes to suicide, let's just say it uproots your world. It absolutely tears everything that you once knew apart, and your perspective changes dramatically. And when that happened, I used to work for Salesforce, a super, huge tech company. I was working in Burlington, Massachusetts, so San Francisco-based company in Massachusetts. Let's just say that I couldn't exactly talk about what I did outside of work at work, right?
Not so much.
I felt like I was living 2 different lives. And so after losing Alex and Zoe, my priorities changed, and I no longer wanted to live a life that was not true to who I was. And about a month after they passed, I went to Sedona. And in going to Sedona, for the first time, I felt whole. I felt at peace. And something about traveling and seeing those beautiful red rocks and hiking and really just being in the moment brought a lot of peace. And so when I got home, I thought the trip would help. It actually made me super depressed. And when I got home, I knew that I had to continue traveling, and I wanted to be in the firearms industry. I wanted to do my passion for a living and not just dream about it all day at work at my 9 to 5, and then, bust my rump every weekend to run matches and to do everything else I do.
Yeah.
And that's really what set me off on this journey.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot right there.
It is. It is. And what's interesting is I've had a lot of people ask me, well, how do you make a living now? Right. Because I went from making very good money at Salesforce, right? I was knocking on 6 figures, to now I was like, well, fortunately I spent my 20s being super smart with money, and I had a nest egg. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to hit the road. I'm going to do this and I'll figure it out. And when you have that attitude of I'm just going to make it happen, it's interesting how opportunities present themselves to you, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so with that, the charity that I have helped run a few matches for, the Aiming for Zero match I had mentioned, reached out to me. We had a meeting, I think, a couple weeks after the event, which interestingly enough was the week that my brother ended up passing away, right? So when I got on the phone with him, I told him, and he's like, oh my gosh, get off the phone, be with your family, call me back next week. And when I talked with them, they had not had anyone heading this part of the charity. So it's just a program of it. Active Heroes is a larger charity, and they do a lot of other programs like rucksack marches, and Zumbathons actually are really popular to raise money for, to help prevent veteran suicide, but no one was running the Aiming for Zero side of things. And he asked me if I could help be a contractor in charge Aiming for Zero. And so I flew out to Kentucky, went to their retreat. It is awesome. It's the only retreat in the country where you don't have to be a physically wounded veteran in order to go to. I didn't know that. I thought the other ones probably accepted everyone, but they don't. You have to have a physical wound. And so I took that position to help, grow this charity. Just like any other business, you can only grow organically for so long, right? And then the other thing too is that guns.com had come out to my event and they covered it. They reached out to me and said, hey, we loved how you were on camera. Would you be interested in doing some more videos with us? I was like, yeah. And of course. And the interesting thing is, so they sort of tested me out by giving me 2 different guns. They were like, we want you to review these used guns for us. They weren't paying me or anything, just review them. But as anyone who is a firearms enthusiast, the opportunity to do a video for a company as big as guns.com, I'm like, yeah, of course I'll do it for free. I don't care.
Yeah.
Right. But what that did is it ended up opening the door to where they loved how the videos turned out. And afterwards, they said, we would love to bring you on as a regular monthly contributor. So that's what I do now is I actually cover all the competition-related content for guns.com.
Huh, that's amazing.
Right.
Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, I wouldn't have had those opportunities if I didn't just sort of make the leap of faith and being like, this is the life that I want to lead. And then once I made that crazy decision, then the opportunities came to me.
Yep, that's true. And it does happen when you put yourself out there. Good things happen. But
yes,
it's also doing the work, right? So you did the work up front. You did the work of putting on a great match, not being a douchebag on the video that they took of you, and doing a good job. And I think a lot of people miss that part of it because like sometimes work, like free work sucks, right?
Yeah.
But think of all the years that you put into that, and then now you're reaping the rewards.
And that's exactly what it comes down to, right? If I were not a match director, if I were not a creator of this series and everything that I went through to get there, and again, just putting myself out there, these opportunities, they wouldn't have revealed themselves. And a lot of people sort of look at what I'm doing. They're like, oh my God, that's my dream job. I would love nothing more to do that. Well, you can do that, but you have to work for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like adjusting your lifestyle too, right? So like it's a completely different thing to do that with, 3 kids and a mortgage versus a travel trailer and your cat.
Yes, I know. It is a different lifestyle, but it's not all rainbows and fairy tales, right?
Of course not.
I mean, it is, people look at it and they're like, okay, so one day I had done a full range day worth of filming, and then I did a full day of talking head. And talking head is basically when you record a review, that is when they sort of pan over to someone sitting there and verbally, like all the verbiage that gets sort of mocked over the video. That's what talking head is, right? And it takes time, and you don't always get it right the first time. So sometimes it will take me 3 takes to get the one that is keepable, right? And then all of a sudden, my beloved phone, which is what I do all my recording with, said, "You are out of memory." I have 1 minute left to do on my talking head. That was it. And so I'm rapidly deleting videos, trying to free up enough space. And for whatever reason, it just was not taking. I'm like, all right, let me do a hard reboot. And when I did that, my phone never came back to life.
Oh, geez.
It shut off and it never turned back on. So I lost basically 2 days worth of filming. And I told one of my friends that, and they're like, "Oh, pity you. You have to go back out to the range and shoot guns again." I'm like, well, okay, I understand to you that sounds great, but this is not the same as me going to the range to practice for competition. This is me reviewing a gun that has nothing to deal with what I need as a competitor to better myself.
It's still work
at the end of the day. It's still work.
Yeah.
It's still work. And that was really upsetting. Let me just say that. That was really upsetting.
Yeah, so we actually talked about this a few days ago because I was having the same problem with my phone, and you had just gone through that. So it's kind of weird. Like I'm still uploading. Here it is, like 3 days later. I'm still uploading all my photos and videos from I guess the last 3 years to the Google Cloud. I only have 17,000 files left, but
yeah.
I can totally relate. Like I've lost memory cards. Like I've had, amazing interviews with people, and then the memory card corrupted for whatever reason. Like I've lost, GoPro, like whole matches worth of GoPro footage and stuff like that. And it freaking kills. And people can't understand that unless they are like a content creator themselves, because there's so much effort and so much time and effort and like heartache that leads to getting there and then getting the film, and then it's gone. And now you got to do it all over again. It's like,
and it's not as easy as just setting up your tripod and going for it, right? So you have to, like, the sun is a big issue. You have to be in a place where if you're recording that, it's not going to create shadows. So people will see the movement of shadows like, oh, why does it look like noontime? And now why does it look like morning time, right?
Yep.
So those little things make a difference. And then even silly stuff like noise, right? And so I remember I was recording one video in my house, and then all of a sudden my cat starts scratching at the door. I'm sure maybe your dog has done the same, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I go and I'm like, all right. So I stop. I put him in another room, start recording again, and then all of a sudden he is meowing. And I am just like, oh my gosh.
Shut up.
And it's like, oh God, stop. So, I mean, we ended up finding a routine that makes it, fine for when I'm recording. He doesn't bother me anymore. But there's those kind of things that go into it, and even tripod issues. So the first tripod I had actually broke, and after that one broke, was trying to do a lot of research to find a good tripod. But in the meantime, I ended up taping the legs together with primer tubes. And sometimes to get the phone to level right, this is like hashtag 3-gun-life hardcore. When you have a tripod that you tape together with primer tubes. No other content creators have probably done that. It's just a weird life. And then to get the tripod level, because the leveling function of it was no longer working, I would balance it on suitcases or whatever I had laying around the house that could sort of help level my tripod.
I love it.
Yeah.
I can relate so much to this because I've gone through all the stupid crap of like dropping things and breaking things, and my first tripod broke and stuff like that. And I remember when I was at Vortex Optics, Ruben gave me a tripod. I was like, dude, you have no idea what this is going to do for me. And
right.
It has, like, I still use that freaking Vortex tripod to set up all my camera shots. It's amazing.
That's awesome. Well, so what had happened to me, and the reason why I dealt with that tripod was for so long, is one of my editors sent a package to Florida, because when I set off on my trip, sort of my route was to, first head to Florida to shoot nationals. This was back in March for the original date. And when nationals got postponed, that package that I had of all of this good equipment is now sitting in Florida. And so I refused to buy new equipment because I knew that I had new equipment that was just so happened to be in another state.
Yep.
Right. And so finally, when, the reschedule happened and I was able to resume my trip, then, I went to Florida and got all my stuff.
That makes sense. So how is traveling during the COVID thing been?
Interesting.
Yeah, you have to wear masks in a lot of places, or are you allowed?
So
are you quarantined? Are you currently quarantined in Montana?
Sure. Sure. If for anyone who's listening, what is really interesting is in New England, they pretty much never stop losing their minds over COVID. Right. And especially with Massachusetts being a bedroom community to New York, everything was super strict. And
because everybody's dying in New York. It's really bad. That's like the worst spot you could possibly be is New York.
Absolutely. And of course, Massachusetts is right next to New York.
Yeah.
And Massachusetts have people that go up to New Hampshire and Maine and Vermont. And so all these other states where we're pretty insular for the most part, we have those tourists from the heavily affected states, Massachusetts, Connecticut. So we were basically restricting anything tourism to in-state only, which of course upset a whole bunch of people. But once I left New England, what was interesting is it turned into a whole different world. I literally felt like I was in a different country. People weren't wearing masks. They weren't as concerned. And when I got to Florida, it was interesting because before I got to Florida, I had messaged Shannon, who runs the national matches. And I asked him, what are you guys doing in response to COVID when it comes to the competition? Are we limiting squad sizes or requiring masks? Because that's what they were doing up north. And he said, well, this is America, so it's business as normal.
Yeah, I mean, it's Florida. Haven't you read all the articles about Florida?
I have.
That's where all the crazy shit happens. It's usually Joe. It's our buddy Joe, Florida man, that does everything.
Yeah, and so especially in Florida, again, it was so bizarre that people were hugging each other, shaking hands. No one's wearing masks. And I'm sure that there's people out there right now who are going to listen to this and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you guys were doing those things. But
that's not my audience.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good because the reality is at most of these major competitions, just be smart, right? Wash your hands, be sanitary. If you are feeling sick, do not show up to the match and be smart. And that is, big boy rules is really what it comes down to. Big boy rules.
Don't touch old people.
And of course, the probability of contracting coronavirus is less than 1%. I don't know a single person who has been directly affected.
Yeah, I do, unfortunately, and he did pass away. He had a lot of pre-existing problems, though, and so he was like the absolute wrong candidate to contract COVID, So,
yeah. And obviously, I'm sorry for everyone who has been affected, and that's not being taken lightly at all.
Yeah,
not at all.
I should kind of, tone it back a little bit. It is a real thing. And it is a very unfortunate thing for those who are affected by it. However, it's not so much a big deal outside. It's not so much a big deal in the sun. It's not so much a big deal for healthy people. So when you combine all three of those, like three-gun matches are very unlikely to have a lot of COVID there.
Absolutely. And in traveling, I had a lot of apprehension about, are there going to be places that are closed that are essential to what I need? And if I get stranded somewhere, will I be okay? Will there be people willing to help? And I haven't seen any sort of closures when it comes to essential needs. And in fact, everywhere that I've traveled, there aren't any businesses. Everything's open. I would say the most strict state, interestingly enough, was probably Colorado.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they've lost their goddamn minds down there. It's
so I can see why you left. I
yep,
can see why you left.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's why I
was
left.
literally walking outside with a friend at Keystone Mountain Resort, and this employee who was standing underneath an awning was like, "Do you have your mask?" And I had it on my wrist, so I just showed her, and I'm like, "But I'm outside, and she is my friend." So
Yeah.
yeah, it was really weird, and how strict they were in Colorado, out of all places.
So they're up to like up to $1,000 fine and up to a year in prison for not having a mask on in public.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, and they're serious about it. But in Texas, they have a mandatory mask law, but no one wears them.
Yeah. So when it was like the height of COVID and like, you know, the start of it, and we honestly were kind of concerned that it was going to be really bad. There was all these like, you know, the portable road signs that are programmable. They have the LEDs that you can change what it says. There was all those on I-25 coming from Colorado saying like, if you come into Wyoming, you will be mandatory quarantine 14 days. And then the next one said, if your stay is less than 14 days, turn around. And the next one, it was like, don't come here if you're a Coloradan. Stay out.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, I mean, I will say just about every state has had those signs, but I have not seen the ones that are like, if less than 14 days, then go back.
Oh yeah.
Turn around and go back.
Wyoming
I have not seen that.
Wyoming doesn't like Colorado very much. And especially recently when there's like a massive influx of people from Colorado trying to get away from all the people that move there for weed. Yeah. So it's been a whole mess. I just tell people here I'm from Texas.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Anywhere but Colorado. Anywhere but Colorado. Absolutely. So I'm interested to hear more about your life of three gun on the road, because again, I don't know of anyone else who does this in terms of living out of a camper, shooting matches. It is a whole different level of RV living, and a whole nother level of being a competitor. Yeah,
for sure. Well, and so it's definitely been a while for me. So I made the transition back to living indoors quite a while ago.
That's one way to put it. Okay.
Yeah, I made the transition back quite a while ago because for me in trying to grow the Three Gun Show and create a business out of it and stuff like that, traveling and shooting three gun was fantastic, but it never I was doing so much actual traveling and driving that you could never edit any podcast, you never edit any video, and you couldn't make contacts or anything like that while you're on the road. So that was a problem I had, is like I tried to fit too many matches into the because it's all fun, right? So I tried to fit too much fun into it rather than stopping and staying place for a long time and doing the work. So that was a difficult part for me, and one of the reasons I chose to stop it. But gosh, I have so many stories of failure and like jacking something up and then overcoming it, that those are always the fun ones. So
yeah, absolutely. And I get that, because it is a very hard balance of travel, adventure, shooting, and work.
Yeah.
Those things, to try to do them all at once has been difficult. Fortunately, I'm at a camp spot right now where I have service. So I actually camp primarily on either BLM land, which is Bureau of Land Management, not the protesters, not their land. They're having a hard time with advertising right now, these BLM land forest people.
Oh, I bet.
Oh yeah. And so I primarily camp in national forest or with friends, which is one thing I will say has been great, because the shooting community is so tight knit. And I have stayed with so many people who really I actually only knew through social media interactions. And once I knew I was going to go on my trip, I sort of put feelers out there. People reached out to me and said, hey, if you are ever in my area, you are welcome. And I only give people a 1 to 2 days heads up, because I don't actually know where I'm going to end up and when, right?
Yeah.
And so I've had people in just about every single place I've been just open up their homes to me and help out. It has been awesome. And everywhere I go, I feel like I have family. So it's not like I'm traveling on the road full time by myself with no sort of community, because we have an awesome community and we're everywhere.
Oh yeah. It's fantastic. When I was traveling, there was a lot of people that were hitting the same matches at the same time. So like they would go back to work and I would do, Dave things during the week. And then we'd get together on the weekend again. It's like, hey, we're camping out on a range again next to each other. And Luke and Ashley Gosnell were a couple of those people. And, I spent a ton of time with them and we had so much fun. And then Tommy Thacker was driving the Timney trailer at the time, and several other people along the way. And it was just like, every weekend was like a reunion. Like, hey, it's great to see you again. Let's shoot some shit, and then we'll part ways again. You go do your thing, I'll go do my thing, and I'll see you next weekend. So it was
absolutely,
that was so much fun.
That's what it is. You see so many of the regular people every weekend, but again, even in shooting local matches, I'll reach out to people who don't even necessarily shoot the national matches, and they will welcome you in. And shooting different local matches in other regions is really neat because the way things are ran are different in each part of the country. And to meet those people is really cool as well. And to be welcomed into those communities. Leaving my shooting community, we're so tight knit, and especially because I do so much within that community, I was a little apprehensive of, is it going to be the same everywhere else? Like, am I going to have that same sort of camaraderie everywhere else? And the answer is yeah, actually. It is. I mean, we would do like a weekly practice with, there was a local club I had done in Florida near Sarasota. And I went to one of their weekly club match practices. And then afterwards, we all went out for drinks and had a great time. And they were like, hey, if you're, ever back in this area, like, come back. We want you to shoot. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I've talked about this with AMAX several times, and I can't quite figure out like the logistics of how to do this. And, maybe someone out there who's listening right now has a really good idea I haven't thought of, but I would love to spend the entire summer only shooting club matches and never the same one twice. And
that would be cool.
That would be so much fun, because I shot a club match in Minnesota, and it was like the Hawkeye Ignite, like Wednesday night match when AMAX was running it. And then we went out afterwards for barbecue and beers. And then I went back and stayed on the range for the night. And that was so amazing. And then going down to, Navasota, Texas, and the Dissonant Arms 3-gun match that they used to have there. And, famously, I about crap my pants when Mike Whiteside said, "Oh, we're only shooting 430 yards today. We're gonna keep it tight." And I'm like, "Oh God, we only shoot 200 at my club matches. I don't know how to do that." So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then everything in between. Like, there's so many cool matches out there that are major matches, but let's be honest, major matches are kind of expensive, right? So several $100. And if you're ROing, it's a week commitment, and then you're, out several $100 worth of ammunition, especially right now. So like club matches, I feel like would be a whole bunch of fun to shoot. Just pick like 12 weeks out of the summer, go shoot 12 different club matches, around, I don't know if you'd want to drive to them or fly to them. I don't know how you do it, but I think that would be so much fun. And then anytime I bring this up, someone always says, but what if the club matches are shit? Well,
that's okay. That's part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's okay. And the way that every club match is operated is different. So as a match director, my gears start turning, because there was one that I shot in it was an indoor match actually. And something as simple as pasters. So they had the rolls that you put paper towels on?
Yeah.
They took that and they stacked the paster rolls onto it so that it was locked in place, and you could walk up, strip off your piece, and then go back. It was simple things like that.
Whoa,
I said,
fancy.
wow, this is smart. Why have we never tried anything like that? And I've noticed out west that a lot of the matches have barns. And so they will drive their tractors with the trailers filled with, all this walls and equipment you need to design stages, they'll drive them through the barns and then everyone just offloads them.
Yep.
Where up north we have sheds. So you have to dump everything outside of the shed, and then you have to take all that stuff you just dumped outside of the shed and try to organize it inside of it.
Yep.
So seeing just logistically how different places run things has been really cool. And I wish that we could educate each other in best practices.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's the really cool thing about match directors that travel for other matches, like major matches, is that they go and see how other matches operate, and they bring the best things back. And I remember when it, like 2012 or 13, when I was shooting club matches in Colorado, the guys that ran the match would go to USPSA Multi-Gun Nationals, and they're like, okay, we took one of the stages from Multi-Gun Nationals and we put it on the ground, and this is what it is. And I thought, like, oh my God, that's so amazing. We're gonna shoot a stage from Multi-Gun Nationals. And
yes.
that was so cool. And like you said, like a lot of the techniques and like how targets are placed in the ground and pounded in the ground and painted and stuff like that. All those are best practices that we can share amongst each other. And when we do, it's really cool. You know, the best ideas rise to the top.
Oh, yeah. And the thing, and I'm sorry for those of you out there who are not match directors, but I get super geeky about this because I love running matches, is stage designs, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times at local matches, local clubs, your stages sort of start to look the same after a while, right?
Oh, yeah.
And as a competitor,
look, a box. We're starting in a box. Awesome.
It's like, why are we doing this again? I saw this last month or the month before. So as a competitor, you're always craving different challenges. And oftentimes as a local club, you just don't have that creativity to create those different stages. So when you do travel, you're able to get those ideas. But honestly, the biggest thing for me has been YouTube. And downloading matchbooks from matches that I've never even been to. Because even if you take, like, and I've done this many times, I will take a stage almost exactly for what I saw it on YouTube. And by the time you put it onto your own range, you have to change it so much that you could have someone who shot that stage at that match that I grabbed the idea from, and they shoot it at your match, and it looks and feels entirely different.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially if there's, grass and no grass, or it's a terrain stage and you put it in a bay, or vice versa.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just the targets you have available, because maybe they had poppers and you only have knockdowns, or, whatever it is. You basically have to create it so that it works within your club's criteria.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the, the unique matches that are around the country, like, oh, well, this match, runs trooper or something like that. And then this match only has 8 rounds in the tube, and then for your shotgun. And then, this match over here is completely different. And then, even the specialty matches, like the AK matches, those you can even take inspiration from. It used to drive me nuts that matches weren't the same. And like, how is everything different when I have to go there? Why are the rules all different and things like that? And now I kind of like it. I feel like it adds character to a match. But one of the great things that one of our club matches did was, we had the Red October Kalashnikov Championship in Southern Utah, St. George at SUPS. And that was in October every year. So in September every year, our club would put on a carbine match. And it was like, bring out your goofy shit, bring your AK that you're going to go shoot this match with. And if you don't go shoot that match with your AK, that's fine. bring whatever goofy stuff you have. If you don't have anything goofy, that's fine. There's an AR division as well. And all we did was shoot rifle. And so it changed. Cool. Yeah. And so it changed like the entire landscape of the match from being, steel knockdowns for shotgun and flyers for shotgun. And then, all these pepper poppers for pistol, to like basically all paper targets, and then some really far away rifle targets. And that flavor, like once a year, breaks stuff up enough to where it's like, oh, this is great. This is like refreshing.
It does. But I will say one reason why I believe that 3-gun, and everyone knows this 3-gun has been on the decline, is because there are so many different rule sets. Yeah. I truly believe if we could unify, like how traditional USPSA is unified nationally, right, then we would save a lot of competitors frustration from trying to figure out the different rule sets. A lot of times we see DQs because to leave his safety off at one match might be a 30-second penalty, but to do it at another, it's a DQ. And obviously you never do that on purpose, but there are things that people do consciously, like bagging and unbagging. There are some clubs you go to where it has to be against a berm, and then there's other ones where people are playing with their guns in their cars in the parking lot. And having one set standard rule set, I think, would save a lot of competitors penalties, DQs, but also bring us together. And I don't know how we could do it. I don't. When I started Three Gun Nation was just kind of dissolving, so I never got to experience that heyday and that unification. But I hope we could find our way again.
Yeah, I think it's a noble cause. I don't think it's going to happen. Hate to bust your dreams.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sad. You speak sad words to me.
I know. So I've lived in Colorado, where four matches within like an hour and a half. None of them had the same rule set. I've lived in Texas, where there was like 2 or 3 matches within like an hour. And if you want to go 2 hour, there was like 2 more. If you want to go 3 hour, there was 2 more. None of them on the same rule set at all. Like
Sure.
Different rule sets of all these places within driving distance, and they share sometimes the same zip code. So I don't think it's going to happen nationally. I think the good and bad thing about Three Gun is its outlaw roots, and we like being independent minded, and we like to be different than everyone else. And for some reason, they just can't give it up. I used to think it was like the match directors that had like some sort of power trip, and in some cases I was right on that, but in other cases, like it's just the range rules, or like, no, we like doing it this way better, or our local major match does it this way, so this is the way we're going to do it. And it's a lost cause.
Right.
Sorry.
Again, sad words. You speak to me, Dave. I'm just trying to unify Three Gun nationally. That's all.
Well, I tried for a long time. Maybe you can carry the torch. Maybe you can get it done.
That's a big burden.
Yeah, it is. And it's, I burned way too many calories on that one. So it's your turn.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I mean, one thing I think we both do very well is just trying to recruit new shooters.
Yeah, for sure.
And that is a universal way to grow the sport. So even if we can't get everyone on the same rule set, we could still continue to recruit people, to educate them, and to help continue, and encourage the people who are currently competing, because that is a huge part of it. And I think for a lot of people to get into Three Gun is very intimidating. So to sort of level that barrier, or lower that barrier of entry, I think is super important.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. So, going to the Wyoming Governors match, it's the easternmost, even though it's in Cody, Wyoming, it's the easternmost USSL match, I believe. Oh wait,
Yes.
hang on, not if we. No, we got to include Texas. Well, Texas is its own nation, so if you don't include Texas, it's the easternmost. So, not a lot of people have shot it, right? And so I've got coworkers that came from Washington. They'd never shot a USSL match. So what I did was I made like a meeting, put on everyone's calendar, and we went to the conference room. I'm like, okay, here's the things that are going to be different. And this is the type of things you can expect. And these targets are options. These targets are meant for pistol only. These targets are meant for shotgun only and stuff like that. And I explained the rules and a lot of the penalties, and then, pointed them to where they could find the rule book and said, you should read up on this. But I took the time to try to give them like the big beats, the main stuff that they need to know. And that's, if you can't all get on the same rule book, at least be that person that does that. So if you've shot that match before, that major match that you're taking all your buddies to, and it's going to be different than what they've shot in the past, tell them, help them out.
Absolutely. And that is so nice of you, because I went to that match and had to sort of seek that out on my own. So I basically cornered Pete and was like, so what do I need to know?
Oh, I'm sure you love that.
Oh yeah, of course. The answer is somewhere along the lines of
Read the rule
just
book.
Don't be stupid. Yeah, read the rule book. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm physically here in Wyoming, about to staff your match. I don't have time to read the rule book, nor do we have fabulous service. But he sat me down and went through everything. And for the most part, the rules for 3-gun, whether if it's outlaw or not, are going to be fairly similar.
Yeah.
Fairly similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, they're all pretty similar. I would say like penalties and I guess penalty and safety violations are the only differences that I would say are between matches. Because otherwise, most everything is in the I was going to say in the stage brief, but Pete's stage briefs are all the same. So
yeah. Well, so, and if you go to Shannon's stage briefs, they're even more funny because I think it's somewhat thing along the lines of shoot things from the shoot stuff area, or no, shoot stuff from the shoot stuff area is literally it.
Nice.
It's kind of like, okay. I mean, it gets to the point, right? It makes sense. I just would have never thought about wording it so frankly.
Yeah. Why even bother at that point? Just give me the timer. I'll run myself.
Yeah. And so one thing that was cool about the governor's match is that staff, we were allowed to camp at the range. And you know what it's like to camp at ranges, but that is, again, it's one thing if you are a weekend warrior and you come out and you have fun. But when you are full-time RVing, it introduces a whole other level of interesting things because they think this lifestyle is so fabulous, right? Living on the road in RV, shooting matches, but you haven't actually truly, experienced this life until you've literally like washed your hair in the sink in a range club bathroom.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, there's just been some very interesting things of camping out on different ranges that you're just kind of like, okay, well, I guess this is what I have to do because you have all of this gear at the end of a match, this little tiny camper, and it's like everything just explodes.
Yep. I would say that you're not a true full-time camper unless you've got black water on your hands and it didn't even phase you.
Yeah, and there's that. Yeah, there's that, and that's never a nice thing, but you deal with it. You deal with it, and learning how to, because I feel like people who camp out, and especially a lot of the people who shoot major matches, they will have campers and whatnot, but they don't have to bring everything that they need for their everyday living, right?
Yeah.
And so space becomes a huge issue because 3-gun, and I shoot both USPSA and 3-gun. So I have a bag for USPSA and a belt for that. And then I have like 2 bags for 3-gun and, my own belt system for that and accessories for both because they're different. And it just requires a lot of space. So you have to be super, super conscientious as to how you pack everything, but then how you handle it. Like at the end of a major match, you feel exhausted and you don't want to put everything away and you don't want to clean everything. But when you live in a camper, you can't just dump everything in there because then you try to go to the bathroom and you're tripping over your shotgun.
Yeah, for sure. I've totally tripped over my shotgun in the bathroom.
Such a weird thing.
It's a perfect place for it. Like that. It's upright. It's right there.
Oh yeah. And again, what's that?
I was going to say that, you're absolutely right because, I did a lot of YouTube researching on full-time RVing, and this one like sweet old lady in one of her YouTube videos told me that if you have things on the counter, the entire place looks dirty, and a small place can look dirty fast, and so put everything away. And so I tried to always put everything away. I tried to have like no dishes in the sink whatsoever. I would clean them as I went and put them dry them off, put them right back in the cabinet. But when you're done with a 3-gun match and you got to peel out and maybe the range is like, hey, we really enjoyed having you for the weekend, but you got to get out of here now. It's a little tough, So having the just the catch-all of the bed of your pickup to throw everything in doesn't work when you're full-time camping. Like you've got to, everything has like its own little space for something. And if you don't put it there, it's gone.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've definitely like my shotgun. So I have a Pelican case that I keep my 3-gun setup in, right? So just my pistol rifle shotgun all fits in this case. But because I have the extended mag tube on my shotgun, I have to take that mag tube off and put it in. However, there is not enough space in that Pelican case for the spring. And so when I first started living on the road and shooting matches, my Springs home has migrated to different places. And I absolutely went to one match and I'm like, I can't find my shotgun spring. Like, this is a major problem. I don't know where it is. So you have to find a home for everything, because otherwise, just bad stuff happens. And when it comes to normal things like cleaning your guns, again, counter space is very limited. So normally my shotgun barrel will end up on like my stove, and then the spring is like somewhere on the counter, and then you start taking out trigger groups and stuff like that. So it just becomes really interesting, and you have to do only one gun at a time, put it away, grab out your next gun. And it's weird because I have a spice cabinet on a shelf in my living area, because everything is your living area. Your kitchen is your living area. Your bed is your living area. So you can only imagine where my shelf is. And I could read it right now. So it has ballistol, hops, cumin, and black pepper. So along with, of course, the lead wipes and cinnamon and, normal things that a full-time camper / 3-gunner would have in her camper.
Of course. Yeah. So for me, I was always worried about like, lead exposure, because I figure like probably getting too much lead anyway just by shooting. So I didn't want to clean everything in my trailer. So I would take it outside, and I had like a little plastic table that I would set up and then clean my guns there. And then, when you're at a camp spot, like you get some weird looks when you're out there cleaning the AR-15.
If only I could see their looks. Well, so that's another thing.
Well, hang on, let me finish that one up real quick.
Yeah.
So one time I'm leaving a camp spot, and I realized like, I got this little paper on the seat next to me that they gave me coming in, and real big it says no guns allowed. And I was like, that's weird, because I spent an entire weekend shooting a match there, taking my guns from my trailer to my truck and then cleaning them outside and talking to people and waving, and no one said a thing.
Interesting.
Whoops.
Yeah, interesting. But so obviously it was a private campground, because otherwise they can't really do that.
Yeah, it was a private campground.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and it depends also what state you're in. For states that are not gun friendly, I don't think, because I like to dry fire, and dry firing inside of the camper is very difficult. To dry fire outside, yes, you do definitely yield some interesting looks. Obviously, you have to be at a campsite that allows where you're not like pointing at people in safe direction, whatnot. But some states are okay with guns and others aren't. So dry firing in Florida, I thought it was so interesting because, my neighbors, if you will, they'd be like, that's different. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just practicing. Don't worry about it. Like, it's safe. I got a chamber flag. You're good. It's good. But I don't really camp at campgrounds. Being a single female on the road, I do not feel comfortable at campgrounds, to tell you the truth.
Right.
So I actually stay away from them, because the one and only campground that I stayed at was a state campground in Georgia. And it is hot in Georgia. And so I had just been driving all day. All I had on was like my sports bra, and then I had a belly band with my carry gun in it. And you can open carry in Georgia, so I knew it was fine, right? So I start setting up my camper and everything, and this guy comes over. He was being nice. It was an older guy. He was walking like a chihuahua or something, so not like anything intimidating. And he's just like, "Oh, I see you set that all up by yourself. You're by yourself, huh?" And I was just like, "Oh no," because if he notices, then other people notice. And when you are traveling by yourself, to be honest, you don't really want people to know that. So I don't know. Being at campgrounds, everyone just stares at each other. So that's why I try to stay on BLM land. I try to camp with friends, because I don't think anything bad would happen, but at the same time, I don't want to put myself in a position.
Yeah. Yeah. Being a dude, it's way different. Like I did a lot of campground. I tried to stay on ranges as much as I could. And again, you end up wearing out your welcome toward the end of the weekend. But
yes.
but then I had to do campgrounds a lot, because I don't have a generator, and I have a dog, and hot dogs and hot boxes don't really go that well. So if I wanted him to live, I had to keep the AC running. So you can't do that unless you're plugged in. So that's what I ended up doing a lot. Unfortunately, it was a lot of, like you said, staring at your neighbors. Like they're so close. It's crazy. But sometimes every now and then you'd find a good one that had like some good wooded areas or something like that. It was kind of nice.
Absolutely. Well, so an app that would have blown your mind back when you were traveling is called Boondockers Welcome.
Oh, yeah?
And yeah, so Boondockers Welcome is an app where people who are just willing to allow campers to come onto their property, you pay an annual fee. I think it was like $60, and you're unlimited to the amount of places you could stay. And they're all over the country. So I actually did that in Amarillo, Texas, because I didn't have a friend in Amarillo. I knew I couldn't make the trek from Austin, which is where I was staying. I shot at a couple local matches at Navasota, actually, a PRS match and a USPSA match there. So traveling from Austin to Denver, Colorado, I knew I couldn't make it in one shot. And so I looked at Boondockers Welcome, and they have power. There's no, like, obviously hookups for water and sewage, but at least I had electricity, which in Texas is needed. So that's
for sure.
Yeah, so that's actually another place or route that I will use to camp is apps like Boondockers Welcome. And then there's another one. So hopefully there's some campers out there that are like listening to this and they're getting some great information. Another one is called Harvest Host. Same thing, annual fee, like $60. And breweries, wineries, farms, they open up their property so you could come and camp at it, which is so cool.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it is. So I stayed at a Mennonite dairy farm in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. It was actually really cool because it's a whole different style of life. And I remember the wife, she clearly was probably not socialized a whole bunch because it's a very insular community. And she just comes over and she's like chatting my ears off, right? But she was this like beautiful combination of like the traditional long skirt and the hair piece. I'm sorry, I don't know what it's called. But then she was wearing like a college sweatshirt.
So interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, but because Mennonites are they're more progressive than, the Amish or some of the other communities out there, which is cool. And then in Georgia, I stayed at a vineyard. I actually got a flat tire heading to the vineyard, so that was a great experience. But anyways, so the vineyard was absolutely beautiful. And to find camp spots like that for basically no cost is amazing.
That is amazing. Dang, I wish they had that when I was traveling. That's amazing.
Yeah. And it's because the other thing too is living on the road, to pay for a camp spot every single night is the same as a mortgage, right? Yep. And to keep things affordable, you really have to figure out how to boondock as much as possible or stay with friends as much as possible, because your cheapest campground, I think, is like $20 a night, and that's pretty much unfindable. That is probably a campsite that's not very desirable. And nowadays, like I went to a campsite today just to fill up my propane tanks, and they charge like $70 a night. Yeah,
especially in peak times, which is when 3-gun happens, like super expensive. There are some city parks that are along, I guess, like, I don't know, major thoroughfares like I-25 or I-80 or whatever, or I-70 that do have plugins, which is kind of cool, and they're really low cost, like $10 a night, depending on the season. And I would stay in those anytime I could, because those were pretty awesome. But you're also staying with, hobos, as long as they...
I was going to say, in a city park?
As long as they keep their distance, you're fine.
You're good. Okay. Yeah. Well, and so you've actually, you told me that you haven't lived until you've been at Walmart campsite, or, Walmart camping.
Yeah, Walmart camping is... So I got 2 great Walmart camping stories. So one of them, I lived in Austin for a while, and then I've traveled back and forth from Denver to Austin several times. But I would do the same thing. I would always stop in Amarillo, and I would just wait till it got dark and then go stay in the Walmart parking lot. But one time when I was waiting for the sun to go down, I was at the Walmart parking lot. Barker was inside the trailer, and I was getting like water and some other stuff from the Walmart. And I come out, and there's this dude getting in his car that was parked near my trailer, and I parked at the back of the parking lot. So I'm like, what's going on here? So I started running with the cart to go confront him, and he like pulled off. And so I'm looking at, so I'm, standing inside my trailer with my Glock 17 in one hand and got my Glock 26 on my hip. And I'm like just waiting for him to come back. I'm like looking at all the windows and just kind of, keeping my head on a swivel. And then after a while, he didn't come back. And so I got out and I like walked around the thing and I couldn't figure out what he had done because he was looking at something. So I couldn't quite figure it out. But then, what was that, like 2 days later? Or a day later, I stopped by the RV dump, and he had opened my black valve and left the cap shut. So if anyone knows what I'm talking about, your black valve like starts the flow of poo and poo water. Yeah. And that's how you empty it, but you have to take the cap off first, and then you hook a cap up to the hose and put it in there.
Gosh.
Yeah. So now my valve is open.
Music you could dub in the background. Dun dun dun
dun dun. dun. What's this one? Oh, that's crickets. Crickets ain't gonna cover it.
Almost applicable, but not quite.
There we go.
Yes.
Yeah. So now I've got the valve open and all the water in there is pressing on the cap, right? Which is not what you're supposed to do. And then I drove that way, which is also not what you're supposed to do. So, had I not noticed that, I would have opened the cap and then just been sprayed with poo water, which would have been horrible. My gosh. Yeah.
Oh, I thought that's where the story was going to end. So my stomach has literally been like in knots.
No, I noticed the valve thing. So I shut the valve, which now you're pushing up against solids, right? So it's hard to shut the valve. And so now you have like 8 inches by 4 inches. It's a 4-inch pipe or 3-inch pipe. So you have whatever cubic inches of poo that are in that little piece right there. And then I had to open it, and luckily it just, gravity fell on the ground. I got a little bit on my hands, which is, how I'm a camper. And then I was able to wash it off. But that dude like sabotaged me to get sprayed with poo. I can't believe.
Why? That's a weird thing.
The weird thing is it wasn't like he was a teenager or a kid or something like that. It was like a grown ass man. And
he was just mad that you were at Walmart with your camper.
I was not parked near him. Like, he came to me. I have no idea what the deal was on that one.
Principle to matter. I bet he was a local that's like, I hate these tourists. I'm going to sabotage.
I did have Colorado plates at the time. I wonder if it was a Colorado thing.
I bet it was. I bet it was.
Damn
my goodness. So one thing that I've been dying to ask you is I went through a journey of research once I decided I wanted to live on the road in terms of what would make the most sense to be able to do this. Because we talked about how much gear 3Gun has. And of course, living on the road, you have to have your amenities. So we both ended up with travel trailers, but I'm curious as to why you picked the travel trailer. I'm more than happy to tell you about why I ended up with one, because that was not my first pick.
Okay. Well, so I naively thought that like you could just drop it somewhere and then drive around, like it would be more convenient to do that than it would be to like drive an RV somewhere. If I had like unlimited funds, I would have done one of those Sprinter van conversions, which I think is like the ideal solution, but I just could not afford it. And so, along with that, thinking that, I'll just park it someplace and then drive through town or to town or wherever I need to go or whatever. I also didn't want to keep a storage unit. And so I basically sold and gave away everything I own.
Really?
Yeah. Like
you're hardcore.
Yeah. Bed, couches, everything. Like everything I had was just, so it made it really easy to move when I finally did. But
wow,
yeah, absolutely everything that I own was almost gone except for like guns and Parker and
priorities.
Yeah, exactly. Got the dog, got the guns, and then of course 2 plates, 1 kettle, a mug, that kind of thing. So I got rid of almost everything except for like my birth certificate and social security card. So that I felt like would be better in a travel trailer. And then of course, because of Do the 3 Gun Show, I got the travel trailer that had like the table in the back with the circular couch where you could, have guests and then record inside the trailer.
Oh, very cool. See, now I'm imagining the layout. So because my camper has a very unique layout, and I'm thankful for it. I found it off Craigslist for $4,000 actually. So nice. I feel like I it was the best.
That's a good score.
It was a good score, but what made me so upset is he was asking $5,000 for it, but there was an ad like needs to go this weekend. So I offered him $4,000. I figured on, what is that, like 20% off or something? It's a decent amount to ask off. And he instantly took it. And I was just like, damn it. I offered him $3,000. Even though I got a good deal at the same time, it's like, but it could have been better.
Yeah.
It could have been a better deal. But what I liked about it is in the front, there is a countertop. There's a really big countertop with cabinets underneath. So I'm able to store a lot of gear and whatnot under there. And then in the back, is a bump out, which also serves as my bed. And when that is pushed back, it reveals a desk, which one of my buddies, I'll do a shout out, Eric Piscina, he made a custom desk for me, which will actually go underneath the slider, and then I could pull it up so it's regular desk height, but then push it down so the slider will go over it.
Oh, that's way cool.
So it is cool, but it's not conducive to multiple people. If I have more than 2 people in my camper, it is very crowded because it's only 18 feet.
Yeah, so mine was 21, I think. So just a little bit bigger. But I will say that I've seen photos of your 4Runner with your trailer. Mine definitely looks a lot bigger. But it's only like a 3 foot or something like that.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it sure does.
It makes a huge difference. Yeah. So originally I actually, I have the 4Runner, right? And I bought I worked for Toyota for 7 years before moving to Salesforce, and I custom ordered exactly what I wanted my last year in working there, which was an off-road edition with a special, off-road KDSS suspension, the rear sliding deck for the cargo area. And I could not justify selling it for a van or an RV because I love my car so much.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to overland, which is where you put a tent on the roof, and then that tent will expand and make a really, really cool camping setup. But the problem is 3-gun life.
Yep.
We have way too much gear.
Yep.
Every single video I pulled up of people overlanding full time, they would retrofit the whole back of their SUVs for cabinets and refrigerators and stuff just to do regular life things. So after you do that, and then you try to add in, because my car will be half full, and when I say half full, not the cargo area is completely full, but then you fold down the seats and then there's stuff in the seats, right, to go to a competition. So there is just like no way for it to happen with overlanding, which was so upsetting because there is a lot of mobility. Like you mentioned, being able to unhitch and move around.
Yep.
There's even more mobility when you're overlanding because you don't have to worry about where am I going to park my camper. And, you could probably get away with sleeping on the side of the road some nights because you look inconspicuous, where when you're towing a trailer, you can't exactly do that because people are like, oh, they're camping illegally. Oh,
for sure. Yeah. And so that's really what I wanted to do as well, was overlanding. And I actually looked into building like a whole, drawer set to sleep in the back of the truck. And then, I actually went on a couple camping trips and slept in the back of the truck. And I realized like, that's not the ideal way to go. And then of course with, dealing with all the 3-gun crap and then having everything I own with me.
The dog.
And the dog. Yeah. It just wouldn't work, unfortunately. Not even, especially even in at the time I had a 1500 pickup truck and it still wouldn't have worked.
Right. Yeah. And that was another issue of mine was with the 4Runner, I only have a towing capacity of 5,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Which is why I couldn't get something like a 21-foot trailer. And to be honest, right now, my camper at dry weight is 4,300 pounds. So if we do a little bit of math, I'm probably over the towing capacity of my car.
Yeah. Once you add any 3-gun gear in there at all, you're screwed.
Yeah. It's so funny because I was talking with some of my friends in Texas, actually, and we were discussing ammo shortages. And I said, yeah, I absolutely need rifle ammo. I knew I needed that. I was able to find some and have it shipped to me in Wyoming. But then I was like, I wouldn't mind some pistol ammo too. And they're like, yeah, we're super low. Like we could give you a couple boxes. And I'm like, couple boxes? I'm like, that I only buy in bulk. They're like, that's not going to work. They're like, well, how low are you? I'm like, I don't know. I probably have like 8,000. They're like, that's low? Yes. I consider that low, but at the same time, I have to stock what I deem to be the appropriate amount to get me through all of these matches that I'm traveling to, because I'm not at home. I can't just go to the resources that I would typically use. I don't have my reloading set up, so I always reload. And so I basically reloaded before I left for the road, and that's what I have. Nice.
Smart.
Yes. Yeah. But ammo is heavy.
Yeah. That's the whole problem is ammo's like super heavy. I think, let's see, what did I do? I had ammo shipped a lot of places. And one of those places, like my brother's house, I remember, picking up like a couple of cases of ammo at his place when I was almost out. But I was traveling not in an election year, and it was, it was pretty easy to buy ammo, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But
yeah. Well, and today we have election year and we have COVID.
Yeah.
So, right. And then, so to try to get ammo as a normal person who is stationary, but then to try to get it when you're mobile, even when I was getting my rifle ammo shipped, he was kind of like, oh, I'm not sure if it's going to get there in time. And I'm like, it has to, because I don't know where I'm going to be after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. That's the other weird thing is like, I don't know if you're into like, books or books on tape or books on CD or whatever, but I would order a book or something and have it sent somewhere that I thought I was going to be. And I actually lost a couple books that way just by changing plans.
Yeah. Well, and so even here in Montana, I have a friend that lives in Livingston, which is about maybe an hour away. And it's so funny because I just messaged her and said, so would it be weird if I had a whole bunch of Amazon packages sent to your house? Because you have to lean on friends. Yeah, well, you have to lean on friends to be able to get normal things, right? And I remember I needed base pads, and it actually worked out because who I was staying with in Colorado, in Denver, shout out to Courtney Gray. She's awesome. She's sponsored by Taylor Freelance, and because they know her, I think they like overnighted it or something. And so fortunately I was able to get those base pads, which I needed for the governor's match.
Nice.
But otherwise, I don't know how I would have done it, because normally when you order gun stuff, we're not like Amazon. It's not 2 days. Normally it's like maybe a week, but then even we're not sure if it's going to be a week is normally the response you get for shipping.
Well, especially right now, like everything's just absolutely insane in the firearms industry.
It is.
So let's see, what were we talking about? Base pads, sending stuff, mailing
shipping,
things
moving
yourself,
around.
shipping,
Yeah.
heavy ass ammo. Oh God, I had a thought. It's gone.
Towing
it's gone.
capacities.
Oh,
All
towing
right,
capacity. So towing capacity, like I was well within the towing capacity of my truck, but my truck was a lot older, and I ended up dropping the rear end out of it, and pretty sure the transmission was getting ready to go too when I had to get rid of it. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Wore the crap out of that thing.
Holy smokes. Yeah. I mean, that's another thing is when you have vehicle issues on the road, it is not fun because you don't know if you could trust the local mechanics. And then obviously the time is of the essence, right? So I actually had some major camper issues happen to me. And when I was driving through from Florida to Texas, driving through that stretch of I-10 that everyone knows is absolutely terrible. I got warned about it, and I'm driving through Louisiana. I'm like, I-10 isn't bad. And then I hit the bridge and I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. They weren't kidding. And so when I got to Texas in the slide out, the top rails and the interior of the camper had actually snapped.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so now because I live in this, if I didn't live in it, I could get away with it because the bathroom and the kitchen is still accessible. But because I do live in it, that takes away half of my living space. As I mentioned, that is my desk, that is my couch, and that is also storage, right?
Yep.
And I call around to RV dealers and, parts are going to be 2 to 3 weeks out. Well, I need to be in Wyoming in 3 weeks for a match, right? Like, that's not okay. And what was great, again, circling back to the shooting community, is one of my friends who runs the matches in Navasota, reached out to his friend network and found a guy that actually shoots PRS at that club and also owns an RV place.
Awesome.
And so, Yeah, so I called him and was like, what can we do? And he said the same thing. Parts are going to be 2 to 3 weeks, but if we order the same parts and they did come in, it's going to be the same cheap crap that used to be in there. It'll probably break again, right? And so he actually in 2 days, custom fabricated these steel I-beam channels and drilled bolts through the roof of the camper to stabilize everything.
Oh, crazy.
And yeah, so he turned that around and it was awesome. But then it doesn't end. So then I go from where I was in Conroe, Texas to Austin, Texas to visit another friend. And when I go to push my slide out back in to leave for Amarillo, all of a sudden it's not sliding in.
Oh, no.
Like, right. So come to find out that the rollers that go into those channels had sort of disconnected. And I was able to reconnect them to slide it back in, but then I knew it was going to be a continuous issue. And it was nothing to do with the person who had repaired my camper. It's just a flaw of it, because I had actually researched the direct replacements of those rollers, and they're actually designed for pocket doors that are 45 pounds.
Oh, you're kidding.
Nope. They make campers so cheap.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't expect people to use them the way that we do, right?
Campers are they're death traps.
Yeah.
Everything's so
are.
thin. Like, you can kick through every single panel on that thing. Yeah. I always laughed when I had like all my guns locked up in the camper. It's like, yeah, locked up is sort of relative.
It's sort of a novel. Yeah. Well, that's why Pelican cases and stuff like that is helpful. But there's obviously, not all of your gear and stuff is going to be in unbreakable cases, but you just hope that people are going to be honest. So I got to Colorado and I knew this was going to be an issue. So that's when my friend Courtney actually helped me order trolley rollers, which are not designed for campers. Mm-hmm. And because the channels that were cut were not big enough, I had to go in with a grinder. And I'm telling you, it was like 2 millimeters. That was it, but it was just enough to where the rollers wouldn't fit. And so we sat in there, and she used to be a fabricator, so she welded up new mounts. And anyways, now I'm good, but let's just say it was pretty stressful for a little while.
So okay. I first of all, I remember what I was going to say. It was the network of friends. Like you definitely need for, full-time RVing, you definitely need a network of friends. It helps to have family all over the country where you can, crash their place or whatever and visit them and combine those trips. But it reminds me of like the people that have the tiny houses, like on like Lifetime or whatever, HGTV or whatever the channel is. And it's always like, oh, look, our bed's above our kitchen and we have this really small couch and it folds out and we're able to live debt free on my parents' land. And it's like, it makes me laugh so much because like that tiny house stuff is a bunch of bullshit because they're never on their own land. And then with full-time RVing, like you could not do it alone. So it's great that you have like a network of friends to be able to help you out in times of need. And then, of course, let you wash your hair in their showers.
Yes. Yeah. And the other funny thing, too, is when you stay with friends, oftentimes they're like, oh, we have a spare bedroom and you could stay in our house, which is great. But then I just bring up the fact that, well, my house is literally parked in your driveway. And if you had the option to stay in your own bed or someone else's bed, would you rather stay in your own? And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, I have my own bed, so I super appreciate you lending me a spare bedroom, but my house is literally in your driveway.
Yeah. People did not understand that. Like I remember my dad's wife, my stepmom, just being so baffled by that. I'm like, well, why don't you come inside? I'm like, I am inside.
I am actually, and it is my house. So yeah. So it's not like I'm in a tent outside. What I mean? So it's okay. It's not rough living. I'm not going to say it's ideal. It's not as nice as having this big comfy house, but it is, it is your home. At the end of the day, it is your home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gotta say I was pretty lucky through all my travels, even though I did have a truck fall off a lift. It was
What
you didn't hear that part?
I think I did, but this is a good story because I used to work at an auto shop.
Oh, right? Yeah.
And so I know how devastating that could be.
Yeah, so I had the rear end go out on my truck when I was towing, and then my buddy Nick came and saved me. Thank goodness. Again, it's that network of friends you have, and we towed my trailer to, I think his folks lived at a place like on a lake, and they had a couple camp spots. So I stayed there for a few days, and then moved over to the KOA. And the whole time, like, my truck's being worked on by this place where Nick used to work, and they replaced the rear end with a like kind and quality. Apparently it wasn't like quality because that rear end did not work out so well, and they had to put in a new one. So when the guy since the tech had to do the job twice, he was kind of upset about it.
Of course.
So he said that he wasn't paying attention when he was putting down the lift, like letting it down. And I'm saying he was probably on his cell phone. And they said that it started to shift as it went down.
No.
Yep. And then it fell off the lift and, ran into one of the posts, and one of the forks ran up into the wheel well. But if you look at the photos he sent me of right afterwards, he replaced the rear end, and obviously the rear end was probably on a transmission jack, right? And the transmission jack was just at the edge of the photo. So I think that he set the truck down on the transmission jack, and it fell off.
And it tipped it?
Yeah, it tipped it and fell off the lift. So, Yep, totaled my truck, which was awesome because as most people who have ever had an insurance claim knows, you're never made right. You never get all your money back. You're always hosed. So when you talk about staying at campgrounds being an expense, so is buying a new truck in the middle of all the chaos. So that's kind of a bummer.
Holy smokes.
Yeah,
that gives me a lot of anxiety because you become super dependent upon your vehicle.
Oh yeah.
You cannot afford for it to go down because it's not like you're just at your house and you get a rental car and you commute to work and whatnot. You've got places to be.
Yeah.
And
so
that's
I was
your house.
I was stuck in Omaha for a couple of weeks. Luckily, I had friends there, which was fantastic. Nick and Jason really helped me through that, but it sucked. It really did. Especially like here's one funny thing. So I had Lance Dingler's shotgun ammo so he could fly to Three Gun Nation Nationals over on the East Coast. And that's when my truck broke the second time. And I was like, whatever happens, I have to get this shotgun ammo to Three Gun Nation Nationals so Lance can shoot the shoot off. And I did. I got him his ammo.
Oh, you're a good friend. What a good thing. After all this stress and chaos, you're like, I am still going to get your ammo to you. That's
exactly.
I appreciate that. That's a good friend. Now, One thing that I am curious about is you mentioned a laundromat story.
Yeah. So, this was after, I think this was after a Three Gun Nation match in Clinton House and before another one. So, I was just going straight to the next match, and Luke and Ashley Gosnell were doing the same thing, and we both had to do laundry. It was like a Monday or something like that. So we drove into town, and I guess it'd be Clinton, I don't know, South Carolina, and we the three of us got there at different times. I walk into the laundromat and I see Luke and Ashley, and Luke's eyes are all big, and right next to them is Jerry and Kay Mitchellek. Really? Yeah. So
in the laundromat.
In the laundromat, cool. I was like, holy shit, this has got to be like, what are the odds? But they're doing the same thing too. They're RVing full time. Or not, I guess not full time, but they're RVing when they travel to matches and stuff. So they're doing laundry. I'm doing laundry, and I like took my laundry soap and like put it in the clothes. Right, that's what you do like in a normal washing machine, and I wasn't really familiar with the front end loaders. And Jerry, I start the thing, and then Jerry comes up as I'm like packing up my dryer sheets and things, and he's like, I think you got to put it in there. And there's like this little this dispenser, and I'm like, shit, it's like the time release laundry detergent thing. And I was like, thanks, man. You saved me some clothes. He's like, I'll save you $2. And walked away. I was like, all right.
Yeah, that could be how many, like maybe 10 or 20 9mm rounds.
Yeah, exactly.
2 77 grain rifle rounds.
Yep.
Those $2 add up.
Yeah, for sure. So I thought it was kind of funny because I think it was after that I was at a Generation 3 gun in Missouri, and I was actually on Jerry's squad for one of the days, and we came up to like this spool, and we're both doing the walkthrough kind of thing, and he waves for me to get down, take my knee, and see the rifle position. So I'm doing that, and I was like, and he's like, how's that feel? And I'm like, I think it feels pretty good. Like I was in the middle of the spool. And so he takes a knee, and then he does the pantomime thing, and he looks over to his right, and he like kind of brushes his elbow over to over on the side of the spool, and scoots over to the right a little bit, and kind of just makes that motion like, look how my arm is touching this, and he goes, I think I'm going to do it like that. And then he walked away. I was like, this is the most helpful guy on the planet.
Yeah. That's a little golden nugget for you right there.
Yeah, for sure. It was him like, coaching and guiding without offering, cause he's so humble. He doesn't think he has anything to tell anyone. So he just was coaching and guiding through that thing. I'm like, wow, just like the soap. Thanks, Jerry.
Just like the soap. What a weird all aspects of life, he's helping out. And right. But it is cool. So I actually camped near Kay and Lena when I was in Florida. And so we were just hanging out in their camper and swapping like camper 3-gun life stories. Mm-hmm. And it's just so funny, again, the things that you learn living on the road with gear, because we were talking about like where we have to store our guns, and how sometimes where you store your guns you have to move in order to do normal life things like cooking, and just like the amount of weird stuff that goes into living out of a camper and shooting 3-gun. But yeah, so that was really cool to swap those war stories with those ladies. It was pretty sweet.
It's a lot of fun. It's a good way to connect with people over that shared thing of living on the road. It's kind of a lot. It's Absolutely. A lot of fun.
Yeah, and then to learn from people who, like you said, at matches. That is what I feel has been the biggest takeaway, because again, in New England, we don't have super seasoned shooters. And so at the governor's match, I remember I was doing, my walkthrough for a stage shooting the staff match, and Keith Garcia comes up, and kind of like what Jerry had done is he's like, well, why don't you transition to rifle for those 4 targets? Mm-hmm. Like, well, wouldn't it take more time to, and that's the thing is I ask questions. A lot of people will just take someone's advice and run with it. And I'm not trying to challenge them, but I want to understand why. And I just ask him, like, wouldn't it take more time to transition a different gun and then go back than it would be to remain with the same platform and engage those targets? And he was just like, well, how much more time are you going to spend aiming with your pistol at those targets versus picking up your rifle? He's like, it's probably about the same amount of time, yet now you're almost guaranteed that you're going to get your hits.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, all right, now you've explained it, and that's absolutely what I'm going to do. And that's what I did, and it worked out great.
Yeah. And I did that too. It was absolutely the right way to do it.
Yeah. So you know exactly what stage I'm talking about.
For sure.
Yeah. So it started off with pistol, and then you transition to shotgun, and then you had the option in between for rifle.
Yeah, I think that was absolutely the right way to do it. I heard a lot of people had a lot of white stuff shot with pistol on that, and I was like, I think those guys are better than me. I'm going to go with rifle on this one.
Yeah, well, and so that is what I will say a difficult thing. So how I make this affordable by shooting major matches, living on the road, is I staff almost every single match, because I cannot afford the $300 plus match fees. And when you staff it, obviously your match fee is waived. But when you staff, you shoot the staff match, not the main match. And typically who you are squatted with is not necessarily the highest of caliber shooters. I'm not saying they're not good shooters, but you're not necessarily going to be rolling with a super squad getting all that awesome advice. And that's been, so that's something where when those guys are kind of doing their pre-day walkthrough, sometimes I'll kind of eyeball them and be like, hey, can you come over here and help me a little bit? I would really like your advice. And there is a different pace to staff matches, because oftentimes you're having to take care of issues, and it just pulls you out of that mindset of being a competitor. And that can be difficult.
Staff matches are tough for sure. So, I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, well, we forgot to put the targets up over here, so we're all going to do that. It's like, I thought we were shooting. I've got all my shit on. And then it's like, okay, well, wait, now go over here and shoot. Like, wait, I don't have the stuff on for that stage. So
yes,
you got to wait till I stuff mags. So that said, treat your staff nice. They probably went through some junk the previous couple days.
Yeah, you're telling me, and it is difficult because oftentimes it's a shakedown day. So what's even worse is when you shoot a stage, someone else shoots that stage and then reveals an issue.
Yep.
And so then your whole squad has to reshoot that same stage.
Yep.
Because you can't have that issue during the main match. But for the staff day, it's okay to run through like 8 or 10 shooters. But during main match day, that is not okay. You cannot have those issues.
No, you're talking about a stage getting thrown out at that point, and that'd be bad.
Yes, that would be very bad. And everyone always says that you can't staff and shoot as well. I'm trying to challenge that. I can't say that I've proved that it is doable, but there is something to that saying.
Yeah, I think, rule of thumb, 15 to 20% off of what your normal match score would have been, because just all the junk. I don't know if you can really quantify it, but that's just, a number I've heard tossed out there.
Yep, I've heard that number too, which is so disappointing because obviously you try to put your all into switching hats, right? So when it's your time to shoot, you try to put on your competitor hat and focus on only exactly what is going on in terms of your stage plan and your gear setup, making sure everything's set and making sure that you are good to go.
Right.
And then trying to take off that hat afterwards and run, fellow shooters, maybe help adjust the stage and do that. And it's a difficult balance for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. Well, so thanks for doing it.
You're welcome. I will say, though, for those of you who have either been to any of my matches or have been to any of my stages, one thing that I do like to do as a staff member is make it fun. So at the governor's match, during the 5 minutes, I play music. During the walkthrough, I'll tell them I'm going to play a beautiful song for you when it starts that signals your walkthrough, and when it ends, then it is done. And I have to, I asked the squad, like, what song do you want played? And it's so funny because I had everything from, I think that I had like Slayer all the way to the Macarena, and it's always interesting to see what squads pick.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, my coworker picked Slayer. It was terrible.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And then after that, didn't we go to Mariah Carey because that Slayer song wasn't 5 minutes?
No, it was Christina Aguilera.
Ah, well, one of those pop people.
Yeah.
But yes. Yeah.
Mariah is way different than Christina, okay?
I'm so sorry. Wait, I'm the female here, aren't I supposed to know this?
Right. Just saying.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I couldn't tell the difference. But so as a staff member, and I encourage this for everyone else who staffs matches, you don't have to do that, but just make it fun, because at the end of the day, competitors are actually they're kind of like your consumers.
Yeah.
It's almost like your customer, right? So even though you're a volunteer, they paid good money to be here. They took vacation time to be here. And if you want them to enjoy their time, which you do, you want them to enjoy their time because you want to continue to have matches and you want people to stay in the sport, you have to have a good mindset no matter what happened during your own match, or if you got in an argument with a competitor the stage before, whatever it is. You have to really try to do your best, because an RO is also a customer service role.
Oh yeah.
And that's something that I don't think a lot of people recognize.
It used to be, so I've had like really good experiences in matches in like the last 2-3 years, but it used to be like ROs were like serious douchebags. And it's like, why are you being mean? Like, I spent a lot of money to be here. There's no reason to be like this. You can be a nice person.
Absolutely. And we've all come across those ROs, right? The ones who are almost power tripping.
Yeah.
I had one at Area 8 one year. Oh, if you shoot Area 8, you know who I am talking about. But anyways, and that's so difficult because you are spending your time and your money to be there, and all you want to do is have fun. But then you have someone who is power tripping.
Yeah.
And you can't understand it. And so I ask anyone who staffs, like, just set it aside and, make it about customer service. And what's tough is in shooting sports, most of us have an A-type personality. A
is for asshole.
We're all pretty strong-willed people, and you have to learn how to work with each other. Like, oftentimes are too many chiefs and not many Indians.
Yep.
So every now and then you have to step down and figure out how can you be the Indian.
Yeah, and that's really true. And then, on the flip side, it's like we as competitors need to be nice to ROs as well. So we're not competitors are not angels. So
no,
everybody just play nice. We'll get through this. It'll be a great weekend. We'll have fun, I promise.
Yes. Yeah. And what's great about 3-gun is I feel, and I don't know if you feel the same way, is that our camaraderie is a little bit, I don't want to say stronger, but we do a lot more socializing outside of the matches.
Yeah.
When
definitely.
I do a major USPSA match, you shoot and then you go back to your hotel or whatever it is, and then you meet back up the next day. But 3-gun, they're like, hey, we have a barbecue, or we're all going out for dinner, or come over to our house. And it almost never stops. You go to bed at like 1 a.m. and you wake up at like 5 or 6 a.m. and it's like rinse, wash, and repeat, right?
Yep. Pretty much. It's kind of tough sometimes.
Yeah. Let's just say I needed like 3 days of recovery after the Governors match.
Yeah, that's the fun thing about sleeping on the range is like you can't get away from that stuff.
No, you can't. And I've definitely had days where I am just kind of in my camper and then the people come to you.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you so lonely? I'm like, I'm just like trying to relax. Like, maybe clean my guns or something. No. You got to come out with us. And it's like, fine.
Just recharging the batteries here.
Yeah. And when you are staying on the range, like you said, you can't escape it. So there's pros and cons. The pros are the relationships that you make, which you would not have made otherwise, because when you do have that external socializing, you get to know people well, and that deepens that relationship. And then just the memories and conversations that you wouldn't have had otherwise. Because oftentimes when you're competing with people, you're not going to be like, so let's talk about the theory of life. It's like, hey, do you think the stage plan is a dumpster fire?
I totally agree. And that's one of the best, I guess memories about my time traveling around was the people that I met and the conversations I had, the connections I made. And I don't mean business connections. I mean like human connections. And I really value that. I think about it all the time. So Taylor, what's your main goal in your walkabout here? What do you hope to accomplish?
Boy. And so that's hard. I've had a few questions in terms of how long are you going to be on the road for, the question that you're asking, which is your ultimate goal. And the first thing for me in going on this trip was more or less healing from the loss of my brother and his girlfriend, Zoe. Right. Mm-hmm. So reconnecting with myself as a human being and really valuing everything that is important in life, which is experiences and connections and seeing all those places that I truly never thought I would see. Right. If you would have asked me a year ago if in this very moment I would be talking with you on a podcast, having just finished shooting a major match and staring at Mammoth Springs and Yellowstone in the distance, I could have never imagined it. Right.
Yeah.
But I wanted to experience things because you don't know how long you have left. You don't. And you have to take your life, in charge of your life, and really make it what you want it to be. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that rat race. They get stuck in that rat race, and I was done with it. So is that a goal? No. So the main goal was really just living life, right?
Yeah.
That was a huge part of it. And I'm sure you must have been in a similar loop as well, because it takes a lot to sell all your stuff and live in a camper.
Yeah, it really does. And like, honestly, like that's basically my story too. You know, I saw, I had experienced loss in a different way. And then I saw, people that were my contemporary or a couple of years older, you know, pass away suddenly. It's like, Jesus, we're in our early 30s here and people are already dying. And so
right.
It's like, what am I sitting in this cubicle for? I feel like there's a lot of life out there to be lived. And I kind of felt like something would be missing. Like I'd definitely have regrets if I didn't go and give it a shot. So that's why I did it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's so many people who hold themselves back for reasons that don't need to hold you back. And I'm not saying it's easy to let go. And I'm not, obviously, we've talked about a lot of war stories of how this lifestyle isn't as glamorous as what people think. But to your point, I would rather have taken the risk and the leap to live a life that I want to live, because there are other people who will not. People we know who have passed and cannot have the memories that we've had. Yep. And make the most out of that. So that's a big part of it. And the other part, of course, was wanting to be in the firearms industry in terms of just hopefully furthering it. I produce a lot of content with guns.com that is really geared towards either the new shooter, the new competitor, or people who haven't done it yet and are thinking about it. I think that is really important. And so being able to generate content around the country has been neat, because I'm covering matches that are all over. And when I go into a match, sometimes you have an idea of what you're going to take away from it. And more often than not, I found that it is completely different. It ends up being completely different. And that's an even better story.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
And I guess to finish off my own story, I actually did a career change in the in the process of it too. So here in Cheyenne, working at Stag Arms now, none of that would have happened if I, like you said when we started, if I hadn't put myself out there.
Absolutely. And obviously, shooting different matches, you meet a lot of different good people. So I have some new opportunities right now that I'm working on, because again, I've met new people and they're like, hey, let me introduce you to other people. And they are attracted to your gumption, your drive, right? Because you are putting yourself out there. And then also you're getting a different experience level than what you would have never had you just rolled around in the same crew at your local club matches, right? Yeah. Because we are traveling all over and shooting all sorts of different stuff, which is fun. And that's a big thing. And then the other part too is hitting the road and helping to charge Aiming for Zero, is to try to build networks for veterans within shooting communities, so that we can continue our work. Because a lot of times when people get out of the service, they're left without that brotherhood in that community. And we've talked a number of times on this podcast about how tight-knit the shooting community is. And oftentimes veterans and law enforcement are attracted to competitive shooting because of that.
Yeah.
And so if we could build that support network within our community, that's super valuable and, really, really helps them.
Absolutely. Well, so if people want to learn more about Aiming for Zero, where do they go?
So you could go to activeheroes.org and select Aiming for Zero on the tab. We have a Facebook page that you could check out as well. And you could just plug in to practice score Aiming for Zero, and that'll pop up a lot of our matches as well. So my match has opened up, and we are going to be competing in Dunbarton, New Hampshire, starting on September 11th. So I'm hoping that if there is anyone in the New England area, that they sign up for the match, because it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited for it.
Good. And so you write for guns.com, and if people want to follow you on social media, you have what are you most active on? Instagram, Facebook?
Definitely Instagram. So I am NH3Gun Girl on Instagram, primarily because I am actually the only girl who shoots 3-gun in New Hampshire. So I had someone tell me I should change my handle to the NH3Gun Girl. that the word "the" was very important, perhaps. So that's me. I post a lot of my content on there. Facebook, I tend to save for. It's not public. I don't have a shooter page, and that is by design. I found that with shooter pages, it doesn't get pushed through to people's feed. It's almost treated as a business page.
Yep.
And so when you have a personal page, it does push through to people's feed on a much more frequent basis. So I would rather friend people who I know are in the community and who will value my content and be able to get that content out to them more readily. Because I'm an open book. I have nothing to hide. So I don't mind friending people on my personal page. But I do. I don't know if you've had that issue with competitor pages, but I've kept it with just the personal page.
Oh, yeah. Competitor pages are lame.
They are. And I find most people who have competitor pages never post to them.
Yeah. And like you said, when they do, it doesn't reach anyone's feed. So it doesn't. It's lame. It's like just shouting in the wind.
Exactly. And then when you like someone's competitor page, you want to know who they are as a person. You know what I mean? So on my Facebook, I will show images. Stories are the best way to see all my photography. So you could see shots of Yellowstone and Colorado and Texas and all these really cool places I'm traveling. So you could sort of follow that side of the adventure. And then obviously all of the shooting components. So with guns.com, all of my videos go through to their YouTube site. And so if you just type in guns.com and typically you type in Taylor, a lot of my videos are going to pop up. So I have one that is publishing this week on the PRS match that I did in Texas, which I am pretty excited for. And then there will be one coming out after on the Governors match. And we're going to be doing a lot of work in New Hampshire I do dry fire drills. Actually, USPSA picked up one of my dry fire drills and put it through on their monthly newsletter. So that was really cool. That was me. Hello. Yeah, that was me. So try to make it happen, but all in due time.
Well, very cool. Well, Taylor, it's been great chatting with you and getting to know you and hearing your story. And I appreciate you sharing everything with the Three Gun Show audience here. Wish you the best in your travels.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's exciting to be able to talk to a wider audience within the Three Gun community because, being a female, I hope to encourage other women. And just being someone who lives full time on the road shooting, I hope to inspire other people to do something similar or at least to put themselves out there more. Because if I could do it, anyone could do it.
Hell yeah. Just go do it, people. Whatever you want to do, go do it. You have my permission. Tell everybody Dave said it's okay.
Dave said it's okay. You only have one life. Go live it. Dave says it's good.
That's right. Well, Taylor, always give my guests one last chance for one final thought or one piece of advice, something to share with the audience for them to take away from our talk here.
Sure. So, man, what do you, one piece of advice? I feel like we've talked about so many things.
I know.
So the biggest thing is, if you're listening to this podcast, you are probably already a competitor, is what I would gauge as your typical audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say as a competitor to try new things, try different matches that you've never done before, whether if it is you only shoot 3-gun and you try USPSA or you try precision rifle, any of those things, because it does make you a much more well-rounded shooter, but also to step up in the community. Help volunteer at your local matches. Matches help to support and encourage those people and get to know people on a social basis, because at the end of the day, we are human beings and most of us are pretty cool, and developing those relationships further, that's a good thing.
I like it. That was a great final thought. Well, Taylor, thanks again for being on the 3-Gun Show. Appreciate having you. And again, travel safe.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to the 3-Gun Show podcast and the interview with Taylor Thorne. Again, check out Taylor's YouTube channel, her Instagram, her Facebook, and again, her interview on the podcast Meat Eater, which is a great podcast, one I love to listen to. My friend Ruben from Vortex turned me onto that, and I've been hooked ever since. So thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging in there. And I know the podcasts have been few and far between this year, but we got more coming for you. I'm not done yet. So Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next episode.